Over the course of the next hour or so, we have, as I say, Hannah and Tim. We'll be joined by Joe Palmer, Wimbledon CEO as well. We've timed this ahead of tomorrow's SGM, which is a single issue SGM, and it's going to be about the London Broncos using plough lane. So I'm sure there'll be questions about that. So Tim, Hannah and Joe will be able to answer those, as well as anything else about Hannah and Tim's specialist areas on the DTB and whatever takes your fancy, really. You will see, as ever, we have a couple of icons at the bottom of the screen. One's a chat icon. Chat away amongst yourselves, together with each other and so forth, but we won't be monitoring that for questions. If you do want to ask a question of Hannah, Tim, or indeed Joe, there is a Q&A icon down the bottom. If you click on that, open it up, we'll be keeping an eye on that. We've had some questions sent over in advance, which we'll be doing our best to work through over the course of the next hour, and we'll be looking into the live questions from the Q&A box as we go. So just a couple of things, a couple of thank yous for helping us put this together. Gary Jordan and George Jones behind the scenes have helped us collate questions, get the technology going and get the invites out, which have got you here. Tomorrow night, as I've mentioned, the SGM is now kicking off at 8:30 p.m. It was originally 7:30, but we put it back because, great news, the under-18s got through to the next round of the FA Youth Cup, and their game against Tottenham Hotspur kicks off at 6 p.m. So that's going to be streamed live, free of charge, on the club AFC Wimbledon YouTube channel. Thanks very much to Charlie Talbot and others for setting that up. It was great. We had great viewing figures last time, actually. Probably more people watching that than our last meet, the DTB. But yeah, so we're hoping for a big crowd tomorrow for Wimbledon versus Spurs at 6, then the SGM at 8:30. So right, let's see the results of this poll. I think we've got quite a few people in. So your man of the match the other day was, yes, Nick Zano. Who else? Who else could it be? Huh? Great performance. That was a great game as well.
I want to know who the one person that voted other was.
Whoever put other, please let us know in the chat box. And yes, you're banned. As is anyone who put anyone but Nick Zanev, surely. But anyway, without further ado, just looking at it, I think we've got a lot of people in now. So last couple of reminders, please use the Q&A box to ask Hannah, Tim, any questions. Joe Palmer, Wimbledon CEO, will be joining us, I think in about a quarter of an hour or so. So any questions about the Broncos, you'll have DTB and club CEO as well. So hopefully nothing will fall through the gaps there. I think that's everything. And no swears, please. And this will be recorded and on via a link on ProBoards. You'll be able to find that in a couple of days. So I think that's looking at it. Everyone's in. So without further ado, I'll hand you over. Hannah and Tim, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks, Graham. I can see that Lawrence put in the chat that he voted for Will Nightingale, and that we all should have voted for him as he's been nominated for an award.
I'd like to ask Lauren what's this award, because I'm not aware of that.
Me neither.
So Lauren, if you could put that in the chat so that we can all, if it's a public vote, we can.
Our website, he says.
Oh, right.
Putting us to shame.
Good one.
Yeah. Well, so as Graham said, Joe should be joining us in a few minutes, really. And actually, all of the questions, kind of unsurprisingly, ahead of tonight were related to Broncos. He's really the guy to answer those questions. So I think maybe just let's kind of begin by talking a little bit about how kind of the last couple of months on the Don's Trust board has been for you, Tim.
Well, intensely busy. The news on how hard we're working is that we're doubling up, and we're going to have 2 meetings a month now. Reason being is not only to get through the work, but to make our input more effective. It's not good having meetings that go on too long into the evening, and people have other commitments and need to sleep sometime. But we are getting through that work, and the reason for the intense pressure is the pressure that we have put on ourselves to deliver. So we have a stadium to open. There's a lot of arrangements to be made. There's the volunteer set up to be put into place. Many of you will have seen advertisements going up for recruitment onto the permanent staff. So there's an awful lot going on behind the scenes to ensure that not only we're ready for the ramp-up game in May, but for the coming season, hopefully in League One.
Yeah, I mean, I very quickly spoke with our volunteer liaison officer, Rick Thomas, earlier on today, who was talking about potentially trying to get an event organised for like a kind of basically like an induction event for possible volunteers, match day volunteers, namely ahead around the summer when it's possible to gather in larger groups to, I can imagine we'll need, especially around the like first days of like full capacity stadium, a lot of additional support around the, you know, basically welcoming people to our new home and getting people used to it. So there has been some work amongst a group who have been thinking about how to attract more find out basically amongst our really talented fan base who's available to do what and help out where they can. And so there has been two surveys actually go out around the volunteering. Basically, first one was looking at kind of what's good, what's bad about volunteering at the moment. And then following that, there has been like a kind of essentially like a skills audit of the fan base, which I believe is still open. I haven't checked on it recently, but I know we've had hundreds of people respond to let us know about how they can help in whatever way, which is amazing. We have an SGM scheduled. I cannot remember the date. Well, so tomorrow is the SGM purely on Broncos, but in April we have kind of our normal SGM in which I am presenting some of the findings back from the survey that you've done.
That's on the 28th, Hannah.
Okay, the 28th, great. In which I will, to do some sort of like headline findings, basically from the time and effort that over 1,000 people have given to in saying how they find volunteering and basically what we're taking for the learning to improve the volunteering offer at the club. And I believe that there's been some chat on pro boards, and I haven't been able to follow it very closely, but there was a match day experience survey that went out quite a while ago now, and the plans are to kind of present those findings, those headlines back as well. I think the original plan was that we would release the findings when we had more kind of understanding of what would be at the ground. I'm kind of waffling, not really knowing what the plan is on it, but
shall I help you out a bit?
Yeah.
Well, I've heard this this volunteer event being described as like a freshers' fair at university, whereby the team leaders, whether they're volunteers themselves or whether they're staff members, will explain who they're looking for, what they're looking for, what level of commitment, and when, what days of the week and what times they would need those volunteers to be. I've also heard it described as speed dating, but I'm not quite sure that's appropriate.
Yeah. No. We've also had somebody, Davalon Hitch, ask about any news on the pub name. I believe that is not in. We're not near kind of agreeing a name, and I would imagine. I mean, I would strongly advocate for this to be a fan's decision of some sort. Do you have any ideas or thoughts, Tim?
I've got several ideas, but I agree 100% with you that the decision should be made either by the wider fan base or more hopefully actually by those who are going to be using the establishment. And our operators might well have some suggestions of their own, but we'll have to wait to see. That deal is imminent, by the way, that we were hoping to have the beer deal in place and everything in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, what's going to be important about that is making it a good place to go on a match day, but also there's so many apartments around there, right? And it's got to be, you know, we want to be making the most of it as a pub for the local residents to want to go to on non-match days, to really maximise that kind of the potential that we have in the asset that we have at the stadium.
Should we do a couple of questions?
Yeah.
So the visit to Brentford, I'm not aware who went, but I do know that we have been in contact with them. Our groundsman has certainly investigated whether the London Irish, their use of the pitch there has caused Brentford FC any issues. But I've actually experienced of watching rugby league in London when it used to be at Fulham, so it's basically the same team under a different name. When they started at Fulham, the pitch at Fulham, most people will know, is notoriously very dry and sandy. And rugby league is played at such a pace that it's probably lighter on the pitch than football, where we have sliding tackles and kick the turf up. Rugby league players, it's all about pace, and they don't have scrums like rugby union. So our ground staff might be better placed to answer that question, but my assumption as a spectator is that it's a lower wear, perhaps even than association football.
So you're saying you wouldn't have concerns about the pitch then, particularly?
I haven't in the slightest.
How about, I mean, there's been a few questions around kind of the pitch being used for, you know, more than it would be otherwise. Regardless of what's being played, you know, it's going to be played through from March to September.
Yeah, absolutely. That is an issue. But I would think instead of perhaps including pre-season friendlies and cup games, that our first team would be on it 30 times a year. If we weren't going to have a ground share with rugby league, I think we'd be in any case looking for a ground share, or to use it ourselves for our development team or our women's teams, because it is a football stadium and we should be using it to the maximum. So long as the pitch is in prime condition for our first team games, we should use it to the fullest extent outside that.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for joining us. We've only literally just got onto talking a little bit about Broncos and the pitch. And we've obviously, you know, we've had quite a lot of questions from people ahead of tomorrow's vote on whether we should accept the ground share with Broncos. So we've had questions in advance, and it'd be great to kind of go through those now, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool. And are you well? Sorry, should have asked.
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, not too bad. It's been a lovely day today. Nice to have a bit of warmth at the stadium. It was quite weird because it's been so cold. I've only ever known it really cold in the stadium. So it's, yeah, it's been quite nice to step outside today, and there's a nice sort of warm smell everywhere. So yeah, it's got a good feeling today. But yeah, nice. all good. Still lots going on. Obviously very busy now with preparing for the test event, which is a very, very important date for us, which you guys would have seen, and getting that prepared, and hoping that all the fans will play their part in helping us to tick all the boxes with the council to allow us to play limited capacity crowds in there. So that is definitely something to look forward to.
What the boxes that the fans need to tick, just for clarity.
just obeying all the signage and the stewards' directions, basically, because you know it is very complicated, and it'll be a very unusual experience for everyone, where you know we have to sort of come in through different gates than you normally would, and sort of obviously keep staying socially distanced whilst we're entering the stadium, and then once you're in, obviously following very strict sort of pathways towards your entrance to the stands, and then filling those stands section by section as well, and then having to kind of remain in your seats So it's going to be quite a weird experience, and just, obviously, just hope everyone will just sort of bear with the sort of process, because unfortunately that's what we're in at the moment. Just listening to what sort of various stewards and announcements over the PA say in terms of when people can leave and when they should leave and that type of thing, so that we can obviously get a nice glowing report from the sports the safety advisory group, who will be assessing us on the night, because then if everything goes well, they will sign us off, and we can then then moving forward, we'll be able to have limited capacity crowd events in the stadium. And obviously, that's important, because obviously if the regulations don't relax on the 21st of June, we could have to play under that, that scenario for some time with the start of next season. But obviously we want to have that ability to do so. So this test event is quite critical. But obviously, hopefully, we hope that the 21st of June does happen, and then we don't have to have limited capacity crowds. But it's just one of those steps and processes we have to go through, unfortunately.
Will the likes, kind of the tea and coffee be available? Things like that. Are they open, or is it simply
no,
come in, watch the game, and leave?
Well, for the test event, no. But obviously going forward, for the if we have to play limited capacity crowds throughout the season, there are various discussions around what level of refreshments could be made available. A lot of discussion has been around serving people in their seats, and that type of thing. So we are going to aim to have at least water available for people on the day for the test event, but more than that, no. We'll provide more details as we get close to that, because the problem is the rules and the protocols are changing all the time. And obviously, you've got, when that sort of the scenario happens, when people are allowed to undertake limited capacity crowd events again, throughout the summer, they're going to be testing a number of mass participation events, with likely the Euros, and they've earmarked 5 or 6 key events where they want to try and get fuller crowds. So we absolutely hope that those all go well, because that will bode well for us. But obviously they may make changes and may say, we're not ready for it, you have to stay in limited capacity crowds, but you can have, you can open concessions and you can serve food, but it has to be done like this. So there's lots of other little elements to those protocols, and they change all the time. We've probably had, of those limited capacity crowd protocols, probably 8 different versions of it. So it just constantly changes as government guidance changes.
And Tony Shepherd has asked in the Q&A whether you know what time the test event is likely to be on the 18th of May at all.
I don't at the moment, but it's likely to be, it will be in the evening, so it's likely to be probably 7 o'clock, I would think. We'll be coming out with that shortly.
And Lauren's asked, what if we need a pee? I presume you're allowed to go to the toilet.
Yes, you're allowed
right?
to go. You're allowed to go to the toilets. It's again, I don't think that's going to be a particularly pleasant experience, because you've got to queue in certain orders. You can't all crowd in the toilet and wait, as us men normally do, just waiting to jump in when you find a gap. That's not going to be the case.
Yeah, it's not going to be normal football, is it? But
no.
Like you say, fingers crossed we can hopefully start next season, at some kind of normality.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We've all got to behave ourselves up until then. I think that's the key.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got a question here from John Martin. I think I could answer it, but Joe, you might want to step in. John asks, I'd like to know how much of the Broncos' revenue, either 200,000 or 500,000, will be taken up by extra costs related to the deal. So my understanding is that that is the net amount after expenses. Yep. Am I right?
It's an estimate on the net income. So there's a lot of things to factor in, but the cost-wise, the actual costs that we've included in the rent are very, very small. It's just basically a handful of essential staff, I think about 3 or 4 essential staff members that need to be there, so it's very, very minimal. Everything else is extra, so we don't pay. Stewards is something for the Broncos that they pay for. There are extra money that we get for pitch, contribution towards pitch maintenance. So yeah, there's everything else is pretty much costed separately and paid for by the Broncos.
Yeah, we had a question in advance about just the maintenance. Sorry to cut you in, Tim, but it's just related to the maintenance question. If we have to upgrade floodlights, who will pay for any improvements, and how much will that cost?
So again, I mean, with floodlights, for us, it's not a requirement. If the Super League, for example, requires them to upgrade it, then that's a cost for them. But also, we've got to consider that if we go up to the Championship, then we would also need to upgrade the floodlights then. So if we went up at the same time, then it would only be fair that we probably shared the cost. But the upgrade, I believe, up to the level that would be required is about somewhere around the 80 grand, I think.
Is it okay if I step in here? Yeah. On the financial side again, David Crowley has asked, what is the impact if we vote no? Very politely, he says, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And again, we at the Dons Trust board were discussing budgets at our last meeting. That's a conversation that's still in progress. And my understanding is that if we vote no and we don't have London Broncos sharing with us, that would leave a rather large hole in our budget for next season.
It would, yeah. I mean, ultimately, it would be that that net amount down in terms of our playing budget. So yeah, it is sizable. And like I said, the upside though is obviously, if they're playing in the Super League, that we're getting up towards that, the 500 mark, possibly even more if they have really big crowds. Is a significant contribution to us when you think that we've got, a loan that needs to be repaid and we've got bond repayments to make. It covers all of that. It has the potential to cover all of that. So, it's a really significant contribution to our budget.
Do you do the next one, Hannah?
Yes, I'm just going, having a look at what we haven't covered. A bit about kind of just like their setup, and around kind of their staff and fan base and offices. Will the London Broncos have use of our offices outside of a match day?
So what we've agreed with them is that we'll make a couple of desk spaces available on a couple of days a week as they need. There's absolutely no part of the agreement where it's not a full scale move into the stadium for their staff. They will remain where their current accommodation is. But obviously, we've got to recognise that they do need to be here, ahead of a match day, for certain issues. For example, with TV come down, I need to have someone here on site, making sure all the ticketing systems and IT systems are working. They're working with our IT team to make sure that's in place. So there will be a requirement, but they're not based at the stadium.
Okay. And in terms of their fan base, how big is it? And that we've also had a question come in kind of late from Dennis Lowndes around will our Broncos, and it's probably a question for Broncos to be honest, be offering discount to season ticket holders for AFC Wimbledon?
That's definitely a question for them. I will say that they have mentioned it to me. So it's something they've thought about. Whether they will or not, I don't know. But they are very keen to become, a part of this community, and they'd love for our fans to come to their games. Absolutely, they would. So they're not, they're not stupid in that regard, and they absolutely will do what they can to sort of, make it exciting for everyone, and make it attractive. But in terms of their fan base, so he did. I should remember. I'll try and remember certainly for tomorrow. But they did tell me how big their database was. I should imagine a lot of it might be legacy, but I would imagine it was a good size. But certainly when they were in the Super League, they were regularly achieving sort of 7,000 to 8,000 fans. So it's a really good size and obviously perfect for our stadium. And one of the real key things, and I think was it Tim who sent a really good question? Sorry, bear with me. Yeah, I think for Tim Probert, he asked a really interesting question earlier about collaboration and how, in terms of how do they make it a success, and ultimately, their success is down to how, our attitude towards it. And if we, we work really closely with them to help them achieve their goals, it's a success for everybody. So the more successful they are, the more successful we are. It's as simple as that. The more fans that they have coming in, the more their fans drink, the more their fans eat. It's good for us, and it makes us more money. So if we really want to get the most out of this, we should get behind it, and really support it and help them in their efforts to get up to the Super League and become a big club again, because we benefit from that.
Because we get commission, right, from their bar takings.
From everything. Yeah. So there's the rental fee, and then we have a commission share on all other areas of income. Well, most other areas of income.
And just to point on just on the community side of things, and the extent to which London Broncos would want to get involved in the local community. I hear from Zav, he's met with them and taken them to the DLAG hub, which is near Plough Lane.
Yeah, to Kappa. They went to Kappa.
Yeah, and they were like super.
Oh, they loved it. They absolutely were behind it immediately, because they took their club captain as well, came along. So they are really excited about getting involved and supporting and helping. They want to support, work in the community as well and support our initiatives. So they are, really keen to become ingrained in Merton, and join us in the good work that we do.
And if I can step in here, Super League is clearly a huge ambition for London Broncos, but I think we should share in the hope that they do achieve that promotion, because London is a favourite destination for the visiting teams. Not only travelling fans coming down, they usually travel by coach in vast numbers. I can remember when their finals used to be at Wembley. And they used to sell out Wembley. Nowadays, they play the final at Old Trafford, and that's sold out every year. And but there's a diaspora. There are an awful lot of people from the north who now live in London, and I think in Super League they can expect some very big crowds. So that's a win-win for all concerned.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think it could be huge. I really do. They've been playing in some pretty awful stadiums, for some time. And I think they've also understood that actually demographically this is actually the area they've always wanted to be. They've always felt this is a better area for them. So I think we're all have the sense that this has got the potential to get some big crowds. Super League would just enhance that. And you're absolutely right, Tim. There are a lot of Northern diaspora living down here who love their rugby league. And then there's also a lot of people locally who would love to be able to drink alcohol in the stands, have a beer in the stands and watch the game. So it'll be a new experience for a lot of people. So yeah, I think there's a great opportunity there for everyone.
And rugby league supporters are very different from football supporters. There's no home end and away end that everyone sits together.
That's right. Yeah, they all sit together. They all drink together. It's a very different environment.
So there won't be the stewarding and policing issues.
No, so they don't have anywhere near the requirement that we do for football. So typically they don't have police. They don't require police presence. It's self-stewarded. So yeah, it's a very different experience.
Yeah, you're right about where they've played in the last 20 years or so. There's been some very out of the way places that even in London you wonder how it takes so long to visit. They played in a hockey stadium at one stage in the Hendon area, and in recent seasons they've been out basically at the far end of the playing fields near the river in Chiswick. So it's not even close to a tube station or quite frankly a bus stop. It's a long walk from anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, even there, they, even like you said, in that stadium, in a very poor ground with not great access, and in the Championship, they're still been seeing 2,000 people, sometimes upwards to 3,000. So you can imagine that. Firstly, in the Championship, moving into Plough Lane, with a good stadium and a good catchment, good transport links, that I'd be amazed if that wasn't up to the 4,000 mark. In the Championship, in the Super League, then you can just tell it will jump up massively. So they've got good potential with audience, really good potential. Like I said, and if they work well with us and they offer our fans discounts, then we could see quite a bit more. So who knows?
I think we should take up the opportunity while they're still at the current level, because I can foresee that in Super League they can expect some close to sellouts.
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions come in. Lauren has asked a couple about the pitch, and in the event of a heavy winter or serious wear and tear to the pitch, who would pay for a new pitch and how much would it cost to restore?
So we don't anticipate that there would be a need to renovate in the winter. The work is done in the summer, which is actually sort of halfway through their season. So effectively, we're actually, you're talking about probably 5 games that they're actually going to play on it in addition. So when we start the season, the load on it is actually minimal, and rugby league is a lot less than rugby union anyway, and actually as even less than football, because you don't have slide tackling and that type of stuff. So the load is very light, and as I said, the pitch renovations will take place. They probably finished the end of June, so actually you've only got their matches that will be in July and August and September, and that probably only accounts for probably a maximum of 6 games that they will play once that pitch has been renovated. And then it's really just us on the pitch until you get round to the end of March, start of April, where it starts to ramp up again, and we're into our last month then. So we don't envisage there being a massive impact on the playing surface. I think it can be managed. The groundsman has gone down to a few ground sharing sites and then talk to the groundsman at those sites as well to understand the situation. He's very confident. We've got one of the best pitch turf care specialists in the world, a guy called Richard Hayden, who oversaw the development of the pitch at the site, and he is, if there's anything, if there's anything to know about pitch care and pitch renovation, Richard certainly does. So we've certainly got good hands there. So I don't think we're going to have I don't see it being an issue at all, really.
Sorry, you carry on.
No, it's just I was just reiterating the point that Graham's put in the chat around Anthony, head groundsman, was on the Wombles Had a Dream podcast and very kind of confident about the pitch impact. So basically supporting what you've just said, Joe.
Good.
And, Keith,
I'm glad we're on the same lines.
You corroborate.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I have listened. Yeah, that's
Keith Brain asks, who would play at home if both AFC Wimbledon and London Broncos had fixtures on the same weekend? Who takes priority?
They wouldn't. So we have primacy of fixture. It's a rule, actually. We have to. So one of the EFL rules of any ground sharing agreement is that the EFL team has primacy in any circumstance. So when they sign a contract, they have to. We would have primacy.
Over to you, Hannah.
Hang on. Can we go to the questions on signage, I think, just around kind of what that is going to look like, and just the kind of fit out of the stadium as well. I think there's been one question from Davalon about when the turnstiles are due to be installed.
So we've got turnstiles already in the main west stand, so they're installed, and then the turnstiles that would be on the eastern elevation and the northern elevation will go in once the wall is completed. So that wall, as many of you know, is sort of been a bit of an ongoing saga, but we finally had agreement and sign off from the council on that, and Galliards. So that works on that will start in about a week, literally a week's time. So as soon as that's built, they will be going in there.
When's that likely to be completed?
End of July. Nice and close. But I mean, it's still, so it's operational. So the whole build, regardless of how long the wall takes, it's being done in a way that means the stadium is operational regardless. So we'll still be able to play games in there, even if it goes into August, for example.
So being a bit dim about this, what happens? How do people get into those stands without turnstiles? What's the logistics?
It's to do with the scheduling and the program of works of the wall. So obviously all the people in the west stand will come through their turnstile. We would certainly be able to do the north stands, the away fans, all on handheld scanners if we had to. Likewise, the east stand could be done on handheld scanners as well. But what the idea is that obviously as you build the wall round, that we would first initially in that south eastern corner is to put in the first turnstile there. So that would be available, straight away effectively, and it would just be the north western end that would be sort of taking a little bit longer, to sort of mean which we don't actually require. Yeah, there's a sequencing for how it goes, but ultimately we would just create if worse came to worse, you create a temporary gate and you put handheld scanners. It's stewards with 3 or 4 handheld scanners scanning people as they come in.
Cool. Tim?
Well, let's rattle through a few questions. They're starting to flood in. Is there any truth in the rumour that Sutton are asking to ground share? From Ronald Griffin, that one.
I can't comment on that.
Right, we'll move on then. Keith Brain asks how ground capacity would be affected if London Broncos get into the Super League.
Would it be affected?
Yeah, I can't see what he's getting at.
No, they would still have the same capacity allowances.
Are there any segregation zones in rugby league like there are in football?
No, I'm pretty sure they don't have segregation, so no, not that I'm aware of.
Lauren Gibbo asks if on a London Broncos match day or perhaps an evening, whether there's any areas of the ground and our facilities that wouldn't be available to Don's fans to access. So the pub or the club shop, anything.
Yeah,
like that.
Of course. It's once you, so we're looking at this in several ways. So ultimately, with any ground sharing agreement, normally it's effectively you're renting it to them for that day because they've got to ramp up and they've got to close down. So the stadium effectively would become theirs. That's true of any ground sharing agreement. What we would look at potentially is how we might be able to open up the event floors. So some of the event lounges in the evening after a game, if it's a little bit earlier. So the problem is that a lot of their games are in the evening. If they're, a 3 o'clock kickoff, then it's possible to be able to open it up for an event, like you do a birthday party or a dinner in the evening. But it just depends on kickoff times, really. We'd certainly look to, but it's at the moment we're not planning for that to be the case. It would be upside if we were able to.
I think you very neatly answered the question a couple down here that Stuart Deacons has posted about any impact on our opportunity to host weddings and birthday parties, etc. I think you've just answered that.
Weddings would probably be a definite because of the amount of time it takes to set up. But that would be expected with any ground share that that's, you know, they're compensating us effectively with the rental for those type of events.
And in the same question, Stuart asks whether our pre-season would be affected or any opportunity for our development team or ladies.
No, not really. And there's plenty of dates for all. I mean, ultimately, they're not. You know, we're talking about home game wise. They are the maximum. Even if they got into cups and stuff like that, it's like 15 games. The average is probably around 12 to 13 games, home games. So it's not very many at all. It's a couple a month. So yeah, it's not like football where it's just constantly, you know, a weekend one, a weekday one, a weekend one, weekday one. It's very, you know, they're not very often. So no, it wouldn't impact. We'll easily work around it. And
if Hannah, I'll just close off the London Broncos questions. Stuart Deacons again has asked. Well, he's confident that the Broncos have played in Super League for 4 of the last 9 seasons. So, Joe, you've had contact with them. How confident do you think they are that they can achieve promotion early on within the period of the deal, so that we can get maximum income?
They are. I would say they're probably, and having spoken to other people, you know, they're certainly one of the favourites to go up. And I would say it's almost, I'd you know, put my house on it probably that within the next 3 years they probably would. I think that's you know, a pretty solid bet. So yeah, no, we're very confident, and like I said again, we can accelerate that. We can help that. You know, it's in our hands as well to help them get up. The more people we get in there, you know, the more we support them, and the higher numbers they get in there, the more money they make, and the better squad they can have. So it's you know, and the other thing, like I said, if you've got a good stadium as well, they're gonna be able to attract better players as well, just like us. So it all works together. So I think, you know, if not this season, I think within the next season, I think it's a really, really, really strong chance.
Surely being in Wimbledon, yeah. I was just going to say, surely being in Wimbledon, you're going to attract better players than where they, by the sound of things, they have been.
Absolutely, especially the international ones. You know, if they've got players that are coming from Australia and stuff like that, they'd probably much rather be in London than you know, Castleford. You know, not that I've got anything against Castleford, but you know.
Before I hand back to you, Hannah, I'd just like to ask Joe how the NHS are getting on with the vaccination centre.
Very well. Yeah, I'm guessing some of you guys have been down there and had your jab. Certainly seen a few of you in there. No, it's going fine. I think they're really looking to ramp up after Easter. I think this first week has been very much sort of testing it. They haven't been at anywhere near full capacity because also there's, you know, it's still, you know, scheduling people. So I think over the next couple of weeks it will really start to ramp up, and I think they'll have a lot of people in there.
Over to you, Hannah.
Sorry, just before we let you go, Joe, there's 2 more questions not related to not sort of related to Broncos, but that you'll be able to answer from Daniel Brett on whether we have a team in mind for playing at the test event.
There are 3 that we're talking to at the moment.
Is it kind of in a similar how you would arrange pre-season friendlies?
Will it be another? So obviously this would be like an under 21 side, under 23, under 21 side, and they are all 3 Premier League under 23 sides that we're talking to at the moment about it.
Great.
They're good ones. They'll be good ones. Yeah, they're definitely worth coming to watch for sure.
Nice. Cool. And do we have any updates of sponsorship on the ground and the stands?
Well, we have stand sponsors at the moment already. So we've got 3 of the stands are sponsored, and we are still in discussions over the naming rights. We've had a couple of very close conversations, but yeah, that's still ongoing. Unfortunately, it's not right now. Is not the greatest time for the sponsorship market, and we've done. You know, we've been very lucky to get the sponsors that we have over the last season. that have been in there, and that's all credit to them. A lot of them are some of our long-standing sponsors who've agreed to sponsor us in what is the worst possible time. Just as the fans have agreed to pay for their season tickets, in a time when they can't come to watch. So everyone's pulled together, including the sponsors. But it's strong, and we're looking to really push on. Hopefully, if we can get a full season with crowds in, it obviously helps a lot, and hopefully the market recovers soon enough. It's not an easy time at the moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, there's just been a few more questions that come in. One from David Crowley on, you answered his question. He's very grateful for you answering your question on the impacts. You mentioned the positives if we vote yes tomorrow, but can you confirm the true impact if we don't vote yes? Is there a plan B? He is planning to vote yes, he says, but what is that backup if? No.
Look, we know that there are potential other people that are looking for ground shares. Whether they'll be as strong as the opportunity we've got, I don't think so. But we have to see. But I hope that everyone does, because I think it will be good. I think it will be the best option we have that has the minimal impact, if I'm honest, simply because of the low number of games that they'll be playing there.
And Jeffrey Wakefield's just put, will Don's members be told of the total of vote against? And I believe that's kind of protocol for all resolutions that we
I think so,
specify exactly the number voted for, against and abstained.
Yeah, if I can step in there, that the result tomorrow evening will probably be a preliminary result, given that we have to double check to make sure that no one has voted twice by proxy and then within the meeting. So there will be an indicative announcement, and then we'll confirm that within a day or two.
Yeah, I understand we've got quite a few proxies in already, so there will definitely have to be, we can't confirm the result tomorrow night, but it won't be too long afterwards, and everybody who's a Don's Trust member will be getting an email with that, and it'll be going on the Don's Trust website as well. So kind of on that note, I suppose, I believe that Graham or George have put in the chat, if you haven't already, and I imagine most people who are on this call tonight have registered, but there is a link to register to vote, to attend tomorrow night. So if you haven't sent your proxy and you want to vote, then you need to be there tomorrow, basically. There'll be some further opportunities to ask questions. You'll be back again with us tomorrow, right, Joe?
I will be.
So everybody who's attended tonight are kind of the privileged who have had kind of sneak preview answers, have more time to think about the decision tomorrow. Anything you wanted to kind of add, Joe, before tomorrow?
No, I think what I will say is that obviously in terms of the sort of budget planning, when we've been going through this process over the last couple of years, and as we're getting closer to the start of the new season, that budget is getting more and more realistic and closer to what it's likely to be. And this is one of the reasons why we are looking at things like ground sharing, and there are other opportunities, which we'll be announcing shortly, which I've had very good news on today as well. And these are other sort of peripheral revenue generating opportunities outside of the traditional commercial and ticketing and catering opportunities, and it's really important that we as a club, we have to utilize that stadium to its absolute maximum, to optimize everything. We've got to squeeze everything we can out of it, because it's not easy. Certainly with the recent discussions or decision from the PFA to get rid of the squad salary cap, which was a massive disappointment to us. It means that our ability to generate revenue is more important than ever, and just focusing on our standard revenue lines of events, commercials, tickets, all that sort of stuff just isn't quite going to be enough, and so we need to be looking at things like this ground share, and other projects which I'm working on at the moment, and hopefully we have some good news on those as well. So, you know, it is important if we want to remain competitive and keep progressing as a club. And we've just got into the new stadium, and you know, we want to have a competitive team that plays well and excites people and brings new people as well to the game. So yeah, it's really important that we think outside the box and you know, look at all the revenue opportunities that there are, and we certainly are doing that. But so obviously a vote yes tomorrow is a vote in that direction, and in terms of progress and ambition, and us being able to meet our ambitions. So yeah, I hope that people will see that it's a great opportunity and vote yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you,
That's
Joe.
very, very positive.
All right, brilliant. Thanks, guys. I'll see you
Thanks
tomorrow.
for joining us. See you tomorrow.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For another day, Hannah, I didn't want to introduce it there and then because Joe's been very generous with his time tonight, and we're calling upon him tomorrow. But the salary cap has never really got up to speed because it had only been in place for a year, and it was going to take about 3 years to take full effect. And now the Football League has reverted to the salary cap management protocol. So it's not that there is no salary cap, it's just reverted to the previous scheme. It's for another time, but I'd very much like a chat with Joe, whether that's in a DTB meeting or in one of these sort of a meet the CEO type of meeting, as to perhaps more detail on the actual effect for us, because I think we might be unduly worried by it, and the Football League, I'm afraid, yet again, who've managed to mess up what should have been a straightforward process. The reason it failed and that they upset the PFA was that they failed to consult with effectively their employees and with their member clubs. So yes, that's a discussion for another day, but just wanted to flag that it's a subject that the Dons Trust Board do keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I can't remember, you're on the board of the FSA, is that right?
Yep, the Football Support Association. I'm on the board, which is like a management committee, but I'm also on the National Council, where there's about 25 to 30 representatives from across all the divisions, including non-league and the women's game. We have hundreds of thousands of individual members and through affiliates who are supporters trusts and independent supporters associations. But we also have associates, so that's people like podcasts, fanzines and supporter groups that perhaps aren't affiliated to one specific club. They might be regional, or they might publish a magazine or have a radio station. So we're very fortunate in that we have 2 places on the Council of the Football Association. So we do have a voice, and we do use that voice in debates at that level. Having said that, you will know of the expression about the Blazers at the Football Association, and that is very much the case. There is a dress protocol, and even debates about the wine list when they used to meet at Wembley for dinner, and people were far more concerned about getting their travel warrants, unfortunately, than about the topics at hand. And the reasons for that are historic. There's about 110 members of the council, half of whom come from the county associations, who no doubt have all done substantial amounts of work in running county cups, doing the administration for regional leagues and so forth. But it has tended to be, and I don't want to be disrespectful here, but it seems to have been that you had to earn your right to get onto the FA Council by time served, and that led to it being very white, very male, and very elderly. So they have introduced in recent years age criteria and length of service criteria, but it's going to take time for those to take effect. But of interest, I hope, to those listening in, there is a proposal which is already underway, really, as a quick fix, and I don't really think this is an ideal way to go, but I can see why they're doing it, that 10 appointees are going to be made to try and correct the diversity and inclusion issues that the FA Council currently has. So 3 of them are going to be perhaps nominated by the Premier League, and then 7 from the Football League and the National League. So that might be an opportunity for those who definitely are underrepresented to get themselves onto the FA Council. But to my mind, it actually compounds some of the issues there already are, given that it is far too big and it's unwieldy. And they're just adding another 10 people to what is already a very large group who must struggle to have any level of sensible debate in the time available.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say that's just a good segue back to the Donstress board and the fact that we set out at the beginning of the year around, kind of looking at where as a collective, as a board, where our skills lie and how representative we are. And we have been discussing, it's kind of been, it will come up again, be brought up again around a youth co-optee to the board and been thinking about this, about kind of basically ensuring the future of the Dons Trust board, and encouraging those, like basically that pathway between being a junior Don and getting more engaged in ensuring that the junior Dons don't sort of like fall off the cliff before they go on into being Dons Trust members. And there should be, well, we'll be discussing that, I hope, at the next board meeting, and there'll be some more public communication around our approach to thinking about a youth co-optee to the board at some point in the near future.
Absolutely, I'm all for that. The boards can get stale. Elections, as we know, are nowhere near lively enough. We've struggled to find any way of hosting hustings or have any sensible debate beyond the efforts, and they're very welcome of those who broadcast interviews as such during the election process. But it isn't sufficient to ensure that we have a lively, energetic, innovative board. And some of the best ideas do come from the membership, and hopefully these Meet the Board events open the door. But we need to be much more responsive. I was actually reading today that the pod is down at Plough Lane. Did you see that?
Sorry, I missed that. There was a motorbike that just went by.
The Dons Trust pod. It is.
Oh, yeah,
I've not seen it down there, but apparently it is in one position. It's going to be moving shortly. So I'm going to wander down there because I'm lucky enough to live locally to Plough Lane, walking distance. So just really looking forward to walking. I won't be walking down the Haydens Road, actually. I'll be walking down the Durnsford Road and then walking down Plough Lane. But or I might walk along the river.
We're all certainly looking forward to it. Will you be going? Are you planning to attend the test event?
I certainly hope so.
If you can.
If I can, yeah. I do fit in under the criteria, but I don't know the exact numbers of the capacity and and I'm not aware of the numbers who might be entitled. I think we're already having to factor in that not everyone will take up the offer, and I'm just hoping that as many people as possible can get to the test event, and that the times change. But there was not wishing to put a bleak viewpoint on it. I have tickets for the Euros, including many of the games at Wembley, and it's not looking good for June. So I think UEFA will have to look to be doing a lot of refunds, unfortunately. And there's a threat that some countries that are still heavily affected by the pandemic might actually give up their right to host, or be forced to give up their right to host. So having looked forward to the Euros being across Europe and being a strange amalgam of a competition in multiple sites across the whole continent. We're now going to have a very last minute cobbled together event that I think sadly will be on TV for most of us. So that's
I think it's just the way, isn't it? Like, but we're slowly getting back to. I mean, it's exciting to see the qualifiers for the World Cup, and who knows what's going to be the situation then. But fingers crossed, it will be better.
Hope so. There's a couple of questions that we better tidy up before we go. And there's one that's directly addressed to you, Hannah, from Chris Stewart, who says, on the question of representation, is the Dons Trust Board planning to do anything to encourage a greater diversity of candidates this year?
I mean, not that it should always fall on Jane to be the, kind of thinking about and championing diversity and inclusion, but she is particularly spearheading that work and does a lot. So I believe it might be tonight that the Women in Game so the next Women in the Game event is coming up, and I think it might be Friday. Should have clarified that, but thinking more about encouraging more women to come along to football, and obviously that isn't related to the Dons Trust particularly. But it's a good point, Chris. But I think that something that we're really trying to do, and as a board, is make ourselves more visible, and kind of basically these, for example, are with the aim and the ambition to get more people kind of socialised to what the Dons Trust Board do. And that's kind of, I suppose it's not a very kind of targeted way of encouraging diversity, but that's certainly something that we can and should be working to think more about. And I think that one of the things that is worthwhile is talking more about the elections earlier. One of the things I love about the Dons Trust Board elections is that it really, at least for a segment of Dons Trust membership, are kind of engaged and involved in kind of matters around the club and in discussing them. And I think, what we're trying to do with these sessions, for example, is just kind of keep that conversation going throughout the year and remind people that this is an elected board. Another, I'm a bit of an aside, but Tim, are you aware of that? You must be aware of the Conservatives on Wimbledon Common.
I certainly am, yes.
Because I've literally just moved very close to the Wimbledon Common, and so I pay a levy in my council tax to the Common. And but I really need to arrange a meeting with somebody from them, because I've seen their numbers for the amount of people that vote in their election, and I don't know what their catchment is, but they have this thing and it works really well. I quickly looked at it on their website. The website's great. And you basically type in a couple of codes to verify. They do online voting really, really well to verify that you can vote in that election. And I really need to, and their numbers are incredible in terms of the amount of people that are engaged with it. Their promotion for the elections are great. And so I really want to arrange to speak to somebody who is involved in that, to find out and learn how we can do our elections better. So if anybody on this call happens to know anybody in the Conservatives or can put me in touch with somebody, please do, because that's something I really want to.
Following your suggestion, I'll have a look at the current list of Conservatives in case I know any of them. They are a great organisation, and we actually used to represent AFC Wimbledon when they had their summer fair, and they were very welcoming. That's at the stables, hidden behind the trees. Well, it's the part. It's the little lane that goes off Common Side. Doesn't look like it goes anywhere, but it ends up at some stables, and where the Conservatives have their horses, because they go out and patrol across the Common. Yeah, I'll have a look for you. That's interesting. There's a couple of questions still to ask. Maybe if I give a quick answer, then you can correct me if I get them wrong. Lauren asks, are we still going to get friendlies with Chelsea that they promised us? My understanding is that we don't really want to push that at the period when there's uncertainty about whether we can get full capacity crowd in, because I'm sure that provided Chelsea promises an attractive lineup for their visiting team, that we could easily sell out and make it a really big event. So I think that's got to go on the back burner for the moment, and maybe do it in a year's time. Have you got anything else on that? And then Stuart Deacons has asked, can we also share with the football team as well as Broncos? And the question of Sutton United was mentioned earlier, but they're a very proud and independent club. I know they've got plans to if they get into the league, and it looks like they will, that they would rip up their what I can honestly say was an appalling plastic pitch, and I don't expect it to improve. And they're going to put down a grass pitch. But I think they would have a couple of years' grace in providing the seating capacity that's required. And even then, there's space within Gander Green Lane to put up temporary stands. So I don't think that would affect them. I think possibly down the line, there might be a position where Fulham undergo more stadium development works. But by the way, anyone who goes past on the tube or is in the Stevenage Road area of SW6, take a look at the magnificent stand that they're building next to the river. It really is going to be impressive. Our new stadium is something to be very proud of, but I similarly can't wait to go and visit Craven Cottage to have a look at their new ground where they've opened up the riverside. So there is a walkway all the way between Hammersmith and Putney Bridge, blocked only by Craven Cottage. But their new stand will allow access other than on match days, so that you can complete the riverside walk. So I shouldn't be picking up our neighbours.
Our rivals.
Well, I think we've run out of questions now.
Yeah, and we're slightly over time, but it's been great chatting with you, Tim, and having Joe join us just ahead of tomorrow. We'll all be back tomorrow, and I think George has been doing a sterling job of reminding people in the chat with the link for tomorrow again to register if you haven't already. I can't imagine people who've registered for this haven't registered for tomorrow. So we look forward to seeing you then. And we thank you for joining us today. I've just seen Lauren, why the bunting behind you? Why not, Lauren? Like, it's lockdown. Yes, just to reiterate, thanks to George, to Gary Jordan, and to Graham for helping to sort these out. I don't think we have a date for the next one, but we'll be in your inboxes to let you know when that is. So thanks for joining us. We'll try and get this recording up as soon as possible, but otherwise see you tomorrow.